Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. It is time, as always, at the beginning of a new month to talk about the books that I read in the previous month. So I'm here to talk about the 13 books that I read in the month of July. 13 is not a shabby number. I'm very happy with that. It does feel like a little bit less than normal. It makes sense though, because I had a lot of things going on throughout the month of July, which you already know from watching vlogs that I have posted. And so we're just going to dive right in. I'm going to start with my catch-up-a-thon reads, my book of the month books that I read throughout the month. I did read 5 book of the month books, and I did a try a chapter video highlighting book of the month books, and I've decided after that video, there are only 4 here. I did 5, but I ended up reading one of them. I did decide I'm going to unhaul The Kingdom of Sweets, which means 6 book of the month books are leaving my shelves, which is the same as what it is every year for catch-up-a-thon. So I'm very happy to have 6 be my number, my go-to number. So let me just quickly tell you about all of these. I feel like I've talked about most of them in videos before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them. I didn't have any runaway hits with these book of the month books. None of them are going into my favorites basket. A lot of them are just going straight into my pango pile to get rid of, especially this one, The Kingdom of Back. I really didn't care for this. I gave it 2 stars. This is by Marie Lu, and it is a historical fantasy. It follows Mozart when he's a child and his older sister, Nan. It talks a lot about the different ways that they were treated, him being a boy and she being a girl, and the music world at the time. But there was this fantastical side of the story that I just really didn't get behind. I didn't understand it fully. I didn't know if this main creature person man was supposed to be a villain or not. I just wasn't vibing with this one at all. Unfortunately, it has a gorgeous cover, but the inside did not live up to it for me. So I don't really care to keep this one on my shelves, but it is a very pretty cover. Then I read another book that is reality mixed with this fantasy world, but I liked this one much better because I read it right on the back of Kingdom of Back, and I did enjoy The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer quite a bit more than The Kingdom of Back. It wasn't a perfect book. I didn't love it. I think I still do like The Wishing Game better than this one, but I did enjoy this one. There are these 2 boys who, when they are young teenagers, they go missing for about 6 months and they come back, and they never talk about what happened while they were gone, but they're not emaciated and thin and ill. They're strong and healthy and vibrant, and everyone is kind of wondering what happened while they were gone. One of these 2 boys kind of becomes a recluse and separates himself out from the world, almost like a hermit a little bit, and the other one is very good at finding lost things, finding lost people in particular, and that makes that his job. So 15 years later, we do follow Emily, who discovers that she has this sister that she never knew, but her sister had gone missing years ago. And so she contacts Jeremy, one of these 2 boys, he's a man now, to help her find her lost sister. Through the course of the story, they go back to this fantastical world, almost like through the wardrobe. It had been told to me that this had some Narnia vibes, and other than like going through the wardrobe into another world, I didn't really get all the Narnia vibes that I was hoping for, but I did think the fantasy world combined with the realistic world was done better in this one than it was in The Kingdom of Back. I really liked Jeremy and Rafe. I liked Emily. I didn't think the romance that was in here was necessary. I've been saying that a lot lately. I'm finding that books that are not mainly romances, I often don't like the romance in them lately. I don't know if this is a new thing, a new stage or a season of my reading. I normally don't have a problem with romances, but I didn't care for it in that one. I also didn't love it in this one. Alice Hoffman's The Invisible Hour. This one is the one that I was most interested in after reading the first chapter in my try a chapter tag. So I decided to just pick it up because it's also pretty short book on my TBR shelf, or possibly the shortest of my book of the month books. And in this one, we follow Mia. Mia has grown up in a cult, and when she is 15, she escapes from this cult. And that is what happens in the very first chapter. Part of what helped her eyes to be opened, not just the horrible things that were happening within the cult, but also she discovered the library and was sneaking books back onto the community where they lived. In particular, the works of Nathaniel Hawthorne, in particular, The Scarlet Letter, was a book that helped her to see things in her community differently and helped her eyes to be opened and showed her a different world, a different possibility of the world. So I do love that books were what helped her eyes to be opened, because I do think books are a good window to the world and a window to different cultures and to different types of living than what we know and experience ourselves. I did like that part of it very much. Halfway through this book, and I was warned ahead of time, so I don't feel like this is spoilery to tell you as well. Halfway through the book, things change quite a bit. So I knew that, and that's all I knew, and that's all I'm going to say. I was prepared for it, and so I just was able to go along for the ride. I know that not everybody really liked how that change came about and what it became in the second half of this book. Many people didn't really love that, and I can see that. I can understand that completely. But I just felt like I was along for the ride. You have to suspend your belief 100%. Again, there's a romance in here that I don't love at all, but overall, I found it to be an enjoyable story, and I'm glad that I read it. It's probably also going in my Pango pile, though. It's not one that I feel like I need to keep. Actually, all of these, I think all of my Book of the Month books that I read are not going to be keepers for me. Another Book of the Month that I read this month is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. And this one is about a young girl whose parents die early on in the story. She learns that she was left an inheritance and her uncle is the curator of that, and so she travels to Egypt where her uncle is an archaeologist, and she learns about her uncle's work and what he's up to and what he's doing. She wants to find out what really happened to her parents. Was it really an accident? What happened? Like, how did they die? She doesn't really have a lot of details about that, so that's her main reason for kind of skipping town. She lives in Argentina, so she leaves her aunt and cousins in Argentina to travel to Egypt, connected with her uncle. He really wants nothing to do with her. He keeps trying to send her back to Argentina. There were so many secrets that everybody was keeping from each other that I got so frustrated. Our main character's name is Inez. I know I could see how she was getting so frustrated because I was also getting frustrated, because the secrets were not being revealed to the readers either. So we just were waiting to see what was going to happen. And this is one of those books that I don't really like, where there's not a lot of closure at the end. There's open-ended storylines. There's no closure. And it drives me nuts, especially because I have heard it's a duology. This is the first in a duology. And I have heard that the second book isn't that great. So I don't really want to read it. But I got to the end of this and I'm like, wait a minute, what? There's no answers. There's no conclusion. Lots of open-ended stories. And that is a very frustrating thing for me. And again, there was a romance in here that I didn't care for. I didn't love this one. It was okay. I mean, I was invested along the way, but the ending ruined it for me because I need the closure, friends. I'm somebody who does not mind a big red bow. Tie up all the ends in a big red bow. I understand that that's not reality, but I like it. I don't love an ambiguous ending, and I don't love a cliffhanger ending. I don't mind if one part of the story is cliffhangered in order to draw you into the next story. I'm fine with that. But to leave everything open-ended, it's just mean. It's mean-hearted. And the final Book of the Month book that I read was Shelterwood by Lisa Wingate. I really enjoyed this historical fiction set in Oklahoma. Dual timeline. In the past timeline, we follow a young girl named Olive who takes her little sister, who's not really her sister. It was during the time where Native children, Indigenous children, were placed with white families ultimately for land rights. Like, there was a lot of political stuff kind of going on in the background that was part of the story, but you kind of gleaned it along the way. So I appreciated the way that that was done. Ollie and her little sister, Native Indigenous foster sister, run away because the stepdad is a bad dude. And the older sister had left a couple of months before the start of this story. And so these two know the dad is no good. They need to get out of there or something horrible is going to happen. He's just a creepy, mean dude. So a lot of this is kind of a survival story of these two girls running off into the woods, into the wilderness of Oklahoma. There's a a big park there, and they connect with other children who are also kind of living on their own because of all of the underhanded politics of things during this time, which we learn about as the story goes on. Then we also have a more current day timeline, 1990. So not super present day, but 1990. And we follow Valerie, who is a brand new national park ranger. And so the land where the two girls are kind of hiding out and trying to survive is now a national park in the 1990s. And one of her, early on in her new job, some bones are discovered in a cave, and the town is like very hush hush about all of it. And so Valerie is trying to find out what is going on here. Who do these bones belong to? So there's a lot about the indigenous people at the time in Oklahoma, the Choctaw Nation in particular, and the white people and all of their messiness. And I really did enjoy this. I liked it a lot. This was probably my favorite of all of the Book of the Month books that I read during the month. It was a hard read at times, heartbreaking too, for sure. But also it taught me about a side of American history that I think is important to continue to learn about and to have my eyes opened about. So I did really enjoy this one. And if I keep any of them, this is the one that I'm going to keep. I haven't decided yet, but it's not a favorite, but it's a keeper, possibly. I guess I'll just talk about, my Patreon book club book this month was Bluebird by Sharon Cameron. I technically finished this on August 2nd, but I don't care. I'm still putting it in my July wrap up because most of it I read in July. This is a World War II historical fiction, dual perspective as well. We follow a young girl named Eva who is on her way to America with this girl, Bridget. We don't know what their relationship is. Bridget is basically nonverbal, speaks to Eva a little bit, but has clearly experienced trauma and is now selective mute and has some outbursts and some behaviors that are just really difficult to deal with, but Eva has been taking care of her for a while. So these two girls come to America. They come to stay with a group of Quakers who work with refugees coming over from World War II. And that was interesting to learn about. But then we also follow this girl, Ingrid, in Germany, whose family is awful, particular her mother. And Ingrid, has been raised to be a good Nazi young woman. And so we see kind of some of that indoctrination and that brainwashing that happened with the Nazi youth. Some of the things that I learned were just crazy to read about. We do learn that her dad is involved at one of the concentration camps, and we learn about Ingrid's eyes being opened to what's really going on and how she comes to grips with her family and her part in all of this. Man, when Eva comes to the States, there's some secrecy surrounding her as well. She's on some kind of a mission, and you don't know for a little while what that mission is, but it has to do with the word Bluebird. She is the Bluebird, and there are these secretive men who are coming up to her and asking her to get some information and to track people down, and the story kind of goes from there. Once again, there was a romance in here that I did not feel was necessary. It did develop. It was a very subplot. It wasn't the main part of the story. There was one beautiful scene in this relationship that I did really like, but overall, I just didn't think the romance part of it was necessary. But I did really enjoy this book, and I think I'm going to give it a 4.5 is where I landed on this, because I really liked learning about things in a different way, and the story was very compulsive. I didn't want to put it down, and the way the storylines all weave together was pretty cool. So I did enjoy that one a lot. Probably my favorite of the month, easily my favorite of the month, was A Torch Against the Night by Sabata here. This is the second book in the Ember and the Ashes series, where I'm doing a read along of this quartet with Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand, and many of you are joining in, which is really fun. So I can't tell too much about this, but we follow Laya and Elias, who are our main characters from the first book. And in this one, we get the perspective of another character, Helene. And we had our conversation from this a few days ago, and it was just such a good conversation. There's so much to talk about. Sabata here does such a good job with her characters. Everybody gets an arc. Like, our three main people get a character arc, like a progression, but even some of the side characters we get to see a little bit of their story arc as well, which is really great. I love it so much, and how everybody is woven together. There are some creepy villains in here. There are some evil people that you just love to hate. There are some morally gray, like, are they good? Are they bad? Are they changing? Is there redemption for them? We don't know. There are some straight horrible people and people that you just really enjoy reading about. So I just am enjoying this so much. This was a reread for me. We're moving on to the third book in August. It will be kind of fun because I haven't read that one yet. I'm excited to see where the third book is going to bring us. In July, I picked out a couple Patreon choices from the jar, and I didn't actually get to the one that I picked during our chat, but I did read And Then Boom by Lisa Phipps, which was another one that I picked out as a bonus one. And this was fantastic. This is a middle grade book told in verse. And this one is about a young boy who is really struggling in his home life and dealing with hunger and abandonment. And the friends in here are fantastic. The teacher is fantastic that's in here. I really like so his mom is not great at all, but all the other adults in this story are really great. And I love that in middle grade books, when there are some good adult interventions and good adult interactions. I really appreciate that. And this one did have some really good adult interactions. But Joe is our main character, and he really is struggling. And it was just a hard read. It was emotional to read about this little boy doing his best and trying to survive. Ultimately, I loved his friends and the way that they came around him and supported him without trying to rat him out or give away his secrets, but like try to help them in the ways that they could. I really appreciated the friendships that were in here. I liked learning what And Then Boom means to this kid, and how it was repeated throughout the story, that phrase, and then boom. Yeah, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. I love this book. Okay, two other middle grade books that I read this month. The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan was on my July TBR, and I did actually get to finish this one. I listened to it on my drive back from my trip to Georgia. It was very fun. Percy Jackson and Annabelle and Grover and the new adventure that they go on. In this one, there are some monsters and there's this golden fleece, and I don't think that this is going to leave a big impression on me. It's not a new favorite of all time, and it wasn't one that I was really looking forward to reading when it showed up in my spinner wheel, but I am glad that I read it. I will continue to read this series little by little. I think it's a lot of fun, just a great adventure, learning about the different Greek gods as well, and what they mean, and what their personalities are like, and these children of the gods. And I just think it's a fun story. It's a fun adventure, but you know, just like a good palate cleansing kind of fun read. Another sequel that I read was Sea Garden by Michelle A. Berry. This is the sequel to Moon Garden, where we follow Maya in Moon Garden, who goes to school on the moon, and in Moon Garden discovers a secret lab of plants. And plants are not really allowed because on Earth they had become toxic, which is why they all had to evacuate and live other places. In this one, we learn that there is another community of people living on Venus, and there's kind of an exchange program that happens. And so Maya and some of her friends are part of this exchange program. They're going in hopes of finding out some information, but things get a little tricky when they're there. I do think that it's good middle grade friendship difficulties were a part of this story, which I think is important because friendships in middle school can really suck sometimes. And then of course, plants and the garden is a part of this one as well. And I really did enjoy this. I'm really looking forward to reading Ash Garden and finishing up this series. I can't tell you too much more about this one because it does continue some of the storylines from the first book, so it would be spoilery. But yeah, I really did enjoy this one. I read one NetGalley book. The Lost Story was a July NetGalley book. I also read Made for Each Other by Lynn Painter. This was just a rom-com that was a lot of fun. It was total palate cleanser just for the fun of it read. It's kind of a Cinderella story. So Abby is our Cinderella character. She doesn't have a lot of money, is kind of bogged down by debt and student loans. And so she works multiple jobs to try to pay the bills and also pay down some of her debt. One of her jobs is to work cleaning overnights in this building. One of her clients is this billionaire, but early on in the book, her apartment building is being fumigated. So she thinks, well, if I just go stay in this building, she knows the billionaire is out of town. So she's like, I'm just going to go stay in his penthouse. Nobody will even know that I'm there. Well, of course, his parents show up the next morning, learn that her name is Abby, and apparently he had created this fictitious girlfriend named Abby, and so the parents just think that this is his Abby. So she gets caught up, and then we have a fake dating story. And I don't often read a straight up romance, but it was a fun time. It was a fun time. There was one or two that I just skipped ahead a little bit because it got a little too steamy for me. I don't need to be in the bedroom with you, but I did enjoy their banter. I did enjoy their conversation. I did enjoy Abby kind of coming face to face with some of her prejudices, and I didn't love all of his secrets, but it was just a fun ride. The last fiction book that I'm going to talk about today is Austin at Sea by Natalie Jenner. This was one of my anticipated reads for this year and one of my gifted books that my friend Joy and her daughters gave me for my birthday, which was so kind. And in this one, we follow these two sisters. What are their names? Henrietta and Charlotte. We're in 1865 in Boston. And Henrietta and Charlotte have started a secret correspondence with Sir Francis Austen, Jane Austen's last surviving brother. So they started a correspondence with him. They're big Austenites. They love to talk about Jane Austen and her work, and they decide to kind of sneak away to go visit Sir Francis Austen in England. On the boat, they come across Louisa May Alcott and some other brothers who have also been corresponding with Mr. Austen, and then we see them as they get to England as well. I really enjoyed the time on the boat. I loved seeing Louisa May Alcott in as part of this story. I did appreciate that this is taking place during the time of suffragettes and women's rights movement, and that was a huge part of this story. Louisa May Alcott kind of had her own thoughts on this matter. It was just a really big part of the story, almost to the point where it took away from the story a little bit for me, but it was good. I enjoyed it. It's definitely not going to be a new favorite or super memorable, but it was a fun read while I read it. I did like their dad sits on the Massachusetts Supreme Court in Boston. The other justices, they have a little book club where they talk about Jane Austen books. And some of that got a little too heady for me. Some of these judges' perspectives on these Jane Austen books. I appreciated their conversation, but I also felt like I didn't always get what they were trying to say. But it was a fun side of things as well. I definitely think that if you know Jane Austen's work, you will enjoy this a little bit more. But there was enough in here that you don't need to have read all of her books, Jane Austen's books, to appreciate the story of these two women coming to England, their interaction with Louisa May Alcott. They put on plays on the boat, and all of that was really fun as well. So it was a good one. And then finally, another book that I finished technically yesterday, August 2nd, but I'm going to still include it because I've been reading this forever and it's a little teeny tiny book, but I have a couple nonfiction that I'm getting back to in August. I've been slacking on reading a little bit of nonfiction every day, and I really loved starting the year off like that. So I'm going to do that again. And so the first one that I finished is Women of the Word by Jen Wilkin. And this is a little tiny book, like I said, that just talks about a process of 5 different things to do as you're studying the Bible, to increase your Bible study, to help it to give you your life and to give it more meaning. And the 5 things are purpose, perspective, patience, process, and prayer. She just really talks a lot about how we can learn to interpret the Bible ourselves. And even before we go and looking at commentaries and other people's thoughts on a Bible passage, this kind of helps you to process through things, to figure out, what do I think that God is saying in this particular passage of the Bible? Lots of very practical advice in here. Lots of questions to get you thinking. Yeah, I really appreciated this. I think this is a book I could revisit and come back to. And I would probably take it like real slow, starting with one step at a time. It got to be a little overwhelming by the end. I'm like, oh my word, that's a lot of things. But all very practical, all with examples of how to do it. And I just really appreciated this. So fantastic little read. And that is it. Those are the books that I read in the month of July. I'm going to be putting 3, actually probably 4, into my favorites basket. Bluebird is going in there by Sharon Cameron, A Torch Against the Night for sure, and then Boom by Lisa Phipps and this nonfiction Women of the Word are going to go into my favorites basket. First one's going in this second half of the year, but I would love to hear from you. How did your July month of reading go? I've heard from many that are feeling very slumpy these days. Hopefully that is not you. Hopefully you read some great books in the month of July. What was your favorite? But if you've made it this far and you're not feeling chatty, don't have anything to add in the comments, that's totally fine. Why don't you put a little explosion of some sort, a little emoji of an explosion, mind blown. I feel like I've done this one before, but that's okay. Just to let me know that you were here. I love seeing who is here watching. Thank you to all of you for spending a few minutes of your day with me. I really appreciate you being here and hanging out with me for a few minutes and chatting some books. So that will be it for me today. I look forward to chatting with you in another video very soon. Bye.